Mary Wilson was packing the last of her belongings in her quiet Boston apartment, folding sweaters with careful precision. Though her mind was miles away, her thoughts drifted toward the old family cottage by Lake Windermere, a place layered with memories of laughter, arguments, and the scent of pine. Every Thanksgiving, she made the same trip. Yet, this year felt heavier, as if the snow falling outside carried a silent warning. Through the frosted window, the streetlights shimmered against the curtain of snow, softening the city's edges. The muffled sound of tires on wet pavement echoed faintly as a taxi passed below. Mary sighed and zipped her suitcase shut. On the phone, her mother's voice had been brisk and condescending, as always. "Mary, your handwork is charming, dear, but really, at your age, to be unmarried and working with old furniture? It sounds so quaint." Mary had forced a polite smile, her hand gripping the phone tighter. "Mom, this isn't a hobby. The Chicago Art Museum just commissioned me to restore a Victorian study set." "That's nice," Patricia had replied, her voice empty of warmth. "Anyway, Caroline and Raymond will arrive tomorrow morning. What time should we expect you?" Mary's jaw had tightened. She could almost picture her mother sitting on that velvet settee in their Beacon Hill townhouse, pearls around her neck, sipping tea as she admired Caroline's latest social achievement. "I'll be there around 3. Mary answered evenly. "Yes, wonderful. The children adore you, especially Eric. Oh, and Caroline's bringing a lovely Chardonnay from a client's Napa vineyard. Such a thoughtful girl, always connected with such wonderful people." As usual, the conversation ended not with affection, but comparison. Mary hung up, took a deep breath, and turned toward her workbench. In the center of her studio sat a 19th-century rocking chair she'd been restoring for weeks. Its curved walnut frame gleamed softly in the lamplight, each grain of wood revealing a story only a craftsman could hear. She brushed her fingertips along its armrest. "Just a few more days," she whispered, "then you'll be ready to live again." Her work had always been her solace, a way to restore what others abandoned, to give broken things a second chance. Maybe that was why her grandmother Eleanor had loved her so deeply. Mary touched the silver locket around her neck, a small oval keepsake with a picture of her and her grandmother smiling in the sunlight. "You have magic in your hands, Mary," her grandmother had said once. "You give life to things that others forget." Since Eleanor's passing 5 years ago, family gatherings had become a delicate performance. The will Eleanor left stated that the lakeside cottage should be shared equally between Mary and Caroline, but her parents had been suspiciously vague about it, insisting that the paperwork is being handled privately. Mary had chosen peace over confrontation, but unease had been growing inside her ever since. She looked around her small apartment, a space that smelled of varnish, old wood, and lavender oil, and felt an ache of bittersweet independence. It wasn't glamorous like Caroline's marble-floored home, but it was hers. Every inch reflected her work and her quiet resilience. Her phone buzzed. A new email. "Ms. Wilson," it read. "The Metropolitan Museum of Art would like to formally confirm your appointment to restore the Louis XV desk and chair set. This is a highly sensitive project, and your expertise comes highly recommended." Mary's heart swelled with pride. It was her biggest opportunity yet, the kind of recognition her family had never believed she would achieve. Still, she didn't plan to tell them. They wouldn't understand what it meant. To them, her success would always be a cute little project. She checked her watch. Time to go. As she hailed a taxi and loaded her suitcase, the driver, a cheerful older man, said, "Heading out for the holidays?" "Yes," Mary replied softly. "Family Thanksgiving." He chuckled. "Good luck with that." The drive through the snowy countryside was long, the world outside turning into a watercolor of white and gold. The setting sun dipped below the hills as she neared the Wilson family cottage, a grand, colonial-style house framed by tall pines and memories. But when she arrived, unease prickled the back of her neck. The house was glowing with light, yet eerily still. Neither her parents' sleek Mercedes nor Caroline's SUV was in the driveway. "That's odd," she murmured, dragging her suitcase to the porch. When she rang the doorbell, small footsteps hurried inside. The door creaked open, revealing Eric, his little face pale and anxious. "Aunt Mary," he said, eyes bright with relief. "You really came." Mary smiled, crouching down to hug him. Of course I did, sweetheart. Where is everyone? Before he could answer, a small voice called out, Aunt Mary. 4-year-old Sophia came running from the living room, clutching a worn-out doll. Mary scooped her up and kissed her cheek. Where's your mom, honey? Mommy went to New York, Sophia said, with Daddy. Mary blinked. And Grandma and Grandpa? Eric handed her a folded note from the kitchen counter. The handwriting was unmistakable, Caroline's elegant cursive. Mary, Raymond and I had an urgent business trip to New York. Mom and Dad went to an antique show in Cape Cod. They'll be back tomorrow afternoon. Please take care of the kids until then. There's food in the fridge and the turkey just needs to be roasted. Caroline. Mary exhaled in disbelief. On Thanksgiving Eve? Her phone buzzed again. A text from Patricia. So glad you made it, dear. Watching the kids suits you perfectly. Make sure the turkey's cooked properly this time. It was a bit underdone last year. See you tomorrow. Her face flushed with anger. A housekeeper. That's all they ever see me as. Still, when she looked down at the children, their small faces filled with hope, she forced a smile. Let's unpack my things and make dinner. Are you too hungry? They nodded eagerly. While cooking simple pasta, Mary observed them closely. Eric was quiet, too quiet for a 6-year-old. His shoulders stiffened at every sound. Sophia hummed softly to herself but flinched when a pot lid clattered. How's school, Eric? Mary asked gently. Good. My teacher liked my drawing, he said. That's wonderful. What did you draw? A house in the woods, but Dad said it was messy. Mary froze for a second. There was something about the way he said Dad, the fear behind the word. When she'd first met Raymond, his smile had seemed a little too practiced. She had always sensed something off, a charm that hid something colder underneath. After dinner, Mary helped the children bathe and change into pajamas. While drying Sophia's arm, she noticed a faint bruise. What happened here, sweetheart? I fell, Sophia said quickly, avoiding eye contact. Mary's stomach tightened. Later, when Eric lifted his sleeve, she saw a similar mark. Did you fall too? Eric hesitated, then nodded. On the stairs. I'm okay. Mary didn't press further, but that night, when Eric cried out in his sleep, please stop, the fear in his voice made her blood run cold. At dawn, Mary stood by the kitchen window, watching the snow drift lazily across the yard. The house was peaceful, but something beneath the silence felt deeply wrong. That morning, she roasted the turkey and tried to fill the air with laughter. The children helped craft paper decorations and turkey hats, giggling as they spilled glue on the table. But when the phone rang, the tension returned instantly. Raymond's voice on the other end was sharp. Are the kids behaving? Yes, they're fine, Mary said carefully. Make sure Eric doesn't get out of line. You know how he can be. I don't think that's necessary, she replied coolly. They've been wonderful. There was a pause, heavy with unspoken warning. Just make sure you discipline him properly. When the call ended, Eric's small voice trembled. Was Dad mad? Mary forced a smile. No, sweetheart, he just misses you. But in her heart, she knew something was terribly wrong. That afternoon, while the turkey baked and the house filled with warmth, Mary's mind churned. The bruises, the fear, the way Eric flinched when Raymond's name came up. She knew she couldn't ignore it anymore. When the children were distracted with crafts, she quietly called her lawyer friend Amanda. I think the children are being hurt, Mary whispered, and there's something strange about my grandmother's will, too. Listen carefully, Amanda said. You'll need evidence. Record everything. Photos, testimony, anything that can help protect those kids. Mary looked through the doorway, watching the children laugh. Her throat tightened. I'll do whatever it takes. That night, she tucked them into bed with a story and stayed until they drifted off to sleep. But as she turned off the lamp, Eric's small voice stopped her. Aunt Mary, can you stay a little longer? Mary sat back down, brushing his hair gently. Of course, sweetheart. What's wrong? Eric hesitated, his lower lip trembling. I need to tell you something. About Mom and Dad. The room was dim, lit only by the soft amber glow of the bedside lamp. Just as Mary was about to stand and leave, Eric's small voice broke the silence. "Aunt, stay a little longer." Mary turned back, her heart softening. She sat gently on the edge of the bed, running her fingers through Eric's hair. "What's wrong, sweetheart? Can't sleep?" Outside, snow drifted softly past the frosted window pane. Moonlight spilled through the curtains, sketching pale, shifting shadows of tree branches across the walls. It was the kind of night that could make the world seem both beautiful and lonely. Eric pushed himself upright, his face serious, far too serious for a 6-year-old. "Actually," he began, his voice trembling. Then he stopped, biting his lip. Mary waited patiently, sensing the weight behind his hesitation. "You can tell me anything, Eric, I promise." For a long moment, he stared down at his hands, clutching the blanket. Finally, in a small, careful voice, he spoke. "Mom and Grandpa and Grandma, they're planning to kick you out today." Mary froze. "What did you just say?" "I heard them talking last week," Eric whispered. "After we went to bed, they were in the living room drinking wine. Mom said, we need to make sure Mary can't claim the cottage anymore." Mary's heart pounded. "The cottage?" she repeated, barely above a whisper. "Yes, the house Grandma left." Eric's voice grew shaky. "Mom said the papers are ready. After Thanksgiving, she's going to sign, and it'll all be ours." The air seemed to drain from the room. Mary felt dizzy, her grandmother's voice echoing in her mind, words she had heard countless times as a child. "This house should always belong equally to my 2 granddaughters." Grandmother Eleanor had been the heart of the family, the one who saw Mary for who she was, not as a disappointment, not as an oddity, but as someone gifted. Now that promise, that fairness, was being erased. "Did they say why they're doing this?" Mary asked, her voice trembling. Eric nodded slightly. "Mom said, your business is just a phase, that soon you'll fail and come begging for help, and then they'll make you sign some papers." Mary's breath caught. A hollow, cold anger began to build deep in her chest. So that's how they saw her, a helpless failure waiting to happen. They hadn't even asked about her life, her success, the museum contract that could change everything. To them, she was still the family's misfit daughter. "Eric," she said carefully, "did you hear anything else?" The boy looked around the room as if afraid the shadows might overhear. Then, in a whisper that barely reached her ears, he said, "Grandpa said, legally, there should be no problem. Eleanor's will has been rewritten." Mary's pulse stopped for a beat. Rewritten? That was impossible. Her grandmother had been precise, careful with every detail, and Mary remembered. The old woman had given her a copy, tucked carefully in an envelope, with a note that said, "Keep this safe, my dear, for someday. You may need it." "Eric," Mary said softly, taking his hand, "thank you for being brave and telling me this. You did the right thing." She hesitated before asking, "Is there anything else that's been making you sad lately?" The boy's eyes filled with tears. He blinked rapidly, as if trying to be strong. "I'm scared of Dad," he whispered. "He gets mad a lot. He yells at me and Sophia. Sometimes he grabs us really hard." Mary's stomach twisted. The bruises, the quiet fear, everything she had tried to dismiss suddenly made horrifying sense. "When I tell Mom," Eric continued, "she says I'm lying, that I just want attention." Mary closed her eyes, struggling to keep her composure. "And Grandpa and Grandma? Do they know?" Eric shook his head. "Maybe, but they don't say anything. They just look away." A tear escaped down Mary's cheek. Her family, the people she had once loved and admired, had turned into strangers. Still, she had to stay strong. "Eric," she whispered, brushing the boy's hair back, "you and Sophia did nothing wrong. What's happening isn't your fault. I promise, I'll protect you." "Really?" The boy's voice carried a faint flicker of hope. "I swear it," Mary said firmly. "I won't let anyone hurt you again." Eric gave a small nod, his eyes drooping with exhaustion. Within minutes, he was asleep, his face finally peaceful. Mary sat beside him, listening to his slow, even breathing. In the silence, her mind raced, the betrayal over the will, the children's suffering, the lies she had ignored for too long. She couldn't stay silent anymore. When she finally stood, she felt heavier but steadier, like someone stepping into battle. Before returning to her room, Mary peeked into Sophia's. The The little girl was curled up in her blanket, clutching her doll, her small face calm in sleep. Mary whispered softly, "I'll keep you safe, too, sweetheart." Back in her own room, she pulled out her phone, her fingers shaking. She typed a message to her friend. "Amanda, it's urgent. Possible child abuse and maybe forgery of my grandmother's will. Need advice immediately." She stared at the message for a moment before hitting send. Then she sat by the window, looking out at the thick, falling snow. The world outside was silent and still, as if holding its breath. Her phone buzzed. It was a call from Amanda. "Mary? What's going on?" Her friend's voice sounded tense. Mary took a deep breath and explained everything, the bruises, Eric's confession, the talk about the will. Amanda listened carefully, occasionally asking questions. "First thing tomorrow," Amanda said. "We need to document everything. Photos of the bruises, the children's testimony. Then we'll secure your grandmother's original will." "I have a copy at my apartment," Mary said. "Good. I'll send my colleague Tom to pick it up first thing in the morning. He's reliable. We'll handle this legally, but we'll do it fast." Mary nodded. "Thank you, Amanda. I don't know what I'd do without you." "You're doing the right thing," Amanda replied gently. "The truth is on your side, and those children need you more than ever." When the call ended, the house was utterly still. The clock ticked faintly in the hallway. Mary sat on the edge of her bed, staring into the dark. She felt fear, yes, but also something new, strength, purpose. Just after midnight, she heard a muffled sound, a soft cry. She hurried to Sophia's room. The girl was trembling, clutching her doll, tears streaming down her cheeks. "It's okay," Mary whispered, gathering her into her arms. "Aunt's here." "I dreamed Daddy was angry again," Sophia sobbed. Mary held her tightly. "It's just a dream, sweetheart. He's not here. You're safe." Gradually, Sophia's breathing slowed, and she drifted back to sleep. Mary stayed, stroking her niece's hair until the child's small hand loosened around the doll. When Mary finally returned to her room, she sat in the dark, staring at her reflection in the window. Snow blanketed the world outside, soft and silent, hiding everything beneath white stillness. But beneath that calm surface, something inside her had shifted forever. Her grandmother's words echoed in her mind. True courage means doing the right thing, even when you're afraid. Mary knew what she had to do. Tomorrow, she would protect the children, expose the truth, and reclaim what was rightfully hers. For now, she let herself close her eyes, drawing strength from the memory of her grandmother's warm, reassuring smile. Outside, the snow kept falling, quietly, endlessly, like a curtain being drawn before the storm.